As you know, Dolores, of course, the co-founder of the United Farm Workers, but also the president of the Dolores Huerta Foundation. She's been involved in numerous work, community work, a social activist for more than 50 years, and inspiration to all of us. Thank you, Dolores, for agreeing to be moderator. So here's where I step aside and let you take over, Dolores, as the moderator.
First of all, thank all of you for being here as we celebrate Cesar Chavez this week. We know that his birthday is coming up on Sunday, right? It's this Sunday, March the 31st, is Cesar Chavez's birthday. And of course, Cesar left such an incredible legacy, and so many thousands and thousands of lives were touched by Cesar. Not only farm workers, but people out there in the cities that were touched by farm workers on the Great Boycott. Of course, the Cesar would go around the country giving talks, and it's incredible to think that Cesar Chavez, even though he passed away at a very young age, that his legacy continues and it grows year after year after year as we have Cesar, his life that is in books and movies, and there's a movie coming about Cesar that will be, I think, released sometime this year, maybe in the fall. But it's wonderful, and thank all of you, because I know that you here are also those that have been touched by what Cesar stood for, his values and his legacy. And so how wonderful that we have such a great panel here to talk about Cesar. And I don't know, maybe I should start with Jess. He's right here by me. And it's good because he actually knew Cesar, right? And he worked with Cesar and was one of those staunch supporters that you could always call on him, whatever was needed. I remember, I think once at La Paz when they needed tamales, was it, or something? Something impossible to get for a whole bunch of people. And he said, "Don't worry, I'm gonna make it happen for you." And somebody that Cesar had so much faith in, because he really embodied the whole idea of si se puede. Okay, so Señor Jesus Gutierrez. Okay, you want to go first?
To answer the first question, then I'll just pass it down. What did Cesar mean to me with the influence as an artist or a community activist? To me, I thought about it, I said, I'm at the university, I want to think. No, I didn't have to think too long. I said, it's very simple. Everybody knows it. Si se puede. That's me up there in that poster at 16, 50 years ago, picking tomatoes with braceros in the fields of Oxnard. So I go forward 50 years, retired state parole officer, 3 kids in college, family, retired at 50. Se puede, seguro que sí. If you believe, and what I learned from Cesar was he could take on giants, agribusiness, políticos, presidents, and he had faith, and he had a lot of ganas. You know that. But that's something that he left me was that si se puede. The obstacles might be huge, but I look back 50 years and I'm saying, look at what we have. Dreamers. Pretty soon, reforma migratoria. It's going to happen, folks. It's going to happen. They told me to keep it short. So, and with this, if you wonder, have things changed? When a high-level Republican gets on the mic and says, and they ask him, why are we so concerned about Latinos now, Republicans? Votes, votes, votes. That's the future, and it's here.
If you all don't mind, I'm going to be adding a little bit of history as we go along, but maybe some of you may not know this, but Cesar's first organizing of farm workers into a union was right here in Oxnard. Okay? It was under the Community Service Organization. And this is, of course, at the time when there were a lot of people from Mexico, braceros that they came, that really didn't have very many rights. And so Cesar not only organized the local farm workers there in the Colonia, okay, in Oxnard, but he also organized the braceros. And he got them to pull a strike. He got the braceros to actually strike. And they forced the Department of Labor to come down and to investigate why were they treating all these braceros so badly and the domestic workers. There's a really good book, I don't know if you all have it here, it's Conquering Goliath. If you don't have that book, I would suggest that you put that in your school books, and United Farm Workers publishes that book, so the money goes directly to United Farm Workers, right? But it was right here where Sister started that first. Oh, hi. One of our original farm families in Abuela right here. Helen said that. Anyway, Anyway, so this is where Cesar started initially. And when he organized a group of workers, he turned them over to the Packing House Workers Union, but then it fell apart. You know, it fell apart. And so then that's when Cesar said, no, we've got to start our own union, okay? But his first organizing was right here in Oxnard, arbitrations, okay? This is when you have to go to where the employers do a grievance, and you have to go and you have to fight with their, high-powered, high-paid attorneys, and we had to put somebody in charge of that. And this was a person who started with the Farm Workers Union. I think she was like 15, oh, I'm a little older, maybe 19, and she actually, in one of the big the first vegetable fruit strike that we had in the Salinas Valley, there was a big strawberry company, and I mean with hundreds of workers, and this person here managed to run that strike with those workers, keep them out on strike, make sure that there was no violence in the strike. And she was so tiny, but she was so mighty. And that, of course, was another. Oh, by the way, she went through our apprenticeship program, right? And maybe she wants to talk about that, how she became an attorney. But this is your own, and now you have her here, Barbara Macri. Okay.
Thank you, Dolores. It's always good to be with Dolores. One of my first jobs was actually taking care of the kids. And we used to travel all over the state of California. She was negotiating. She actually taught me how to negotiate. And while I was helping her with Juanita at that time, I was just a baby. I've really been blessed. I came into the union at a fairly young age, just kind of leaving college because there was too much going on. There was too much going on in the world to be sitting in a classroom. And I've had tremendous opportunities to do everything. Like Dolores said, in the union there was so much to do that whoever was willing to work had the jobs. And it's true, there were a lot of us women that out in the society, they didn't really get much of a chance. But in the union, we got incredible opportunities. And my 20 years or 20-some years in the union has just been from one opportunity to the other. And having the opportunity also to work very closely with Cesar. So, I mean, I'm blessed. There aren't too many people who could say they worked very closely with Dolores and very closely with Cesar. So it is a blessing for me. And in the union, you learn the skills. The question here is, what do you take with us? What did we take with us? What do we gain? It's true I'm a lawyer. And kind of by default, I became a lawyer. Cesar wanted this apprenticeship program going, and I was running the legal department at the time, so we put some people in the program, and then one young man came and he wanted to be in the program. I said, oh, Ned, go find somebody, because we'll only do it if there's two. And he couldn't find anybody, and that's kind of how I started apprenticeship. But in everything that I've done, I'm kind of a community lawyer here. I specialize in affordable housing and education. And I may have the license to be an attorney, but in terms of how I approach my job and my whatever the case is as an organizer first and as a negotiator second. And with an understanding that you're probably very seldom going to get justice in the court. That's the exception, not the rule. And so you have to find a way to be able to get what your clients need. And the way I've been able to do that is because of organizing skills, negotiating skills that I learned in the union, and also just a tremendous the philosophy in the union. And in terms of you work, like Dolores said, the people that were willing to do the work and to not be afraid of it. And we were very, very lucky because nobody expected us to do anything. You know, when nobody has an expectation for you, then you can go out there and you're free to mess up. You're free to learn, and you're free to explore. And I think those are the traits that I picked up in the union that have followed me all my life in terms of helping other people, doing my job, never being afraid to take a course that hasn't been taken or that people are hesitant about or are worried. That other thing in the union, everybody hated us in terms of the outside, and so that was another thing. You learned a concha, a shell, and you just were able to persist. And that, believe me, that is something you want to carry with you in your life, because you can't let other people's opinions set you on a course that diverts you from what you really want to do. And you know, one thing in the union, Cesar and Dolores and Fred Ross trained hundreds and thousands of people. And over the years, it doesn't matter where I go, what city in this country that I'll go to, I'll always run into somebody who is an alumni of the UFW. And they're in the unions, they're in community organizations, everywhere. And it's really, I think that carrying that message, that it's a glue that keeps us together and keeps us going forward.
Thank you, Barbara. I'm glad that Barbara mentioned Fred Ross Sr. because he's the person that taught both Cesar and myself how to organize. He was such a good organizer that if I asked you in the room, how many of you have heard of Fred Ross? Let me see your hands. Just a handful of people. That's what a great organizer he was, okay? Because people don't know who he is. Because he believed in building leadership in other people. And of course, Barbara Macri had been a leader on the boycott, and I told you about the big strike that she ran. But when she came to Delano then, and we were doing organizing, unfortunately we had a little bit of machismo going on, okay? And they didn't want to put her in the organizing team. And I knew the fact that we can do things together through the community, right? When the community gets together, that's the way that we make changes. Otherwise, no, it doesn't happen. No pasa, you know? And of course, our next speaker is Veronica Valadez, who is a community activist here in Ventura County, also bilingual education teacher, a lecturer here also at Channel Islands. But she brings to that, to her activism, all of the, she's a visual artist, she's a curator, and of course, a danzante, no? Azteca danzante. And of course, you know, during all of the years that we were on strike in the union, the thing that kept everybody going were the songs, the actos. You know, Luis Valadez, he would come out and have a play. We'd have a new play every Friday night. Do you believe that? We had these Friday night meetings, and Luis Valadez would have new songs, new plays, new actos, and that kept the people's spirits going. So we know that art is such an important part, the culture, the music, such an important part of movement. And so we want to thank you and want to hear from you. Veronica Valadez.
Thank you, Dolores. Well, as a teacher, a bilingual educator here in Ventura, very proud to be a bilingual educator. I really walk into the classroom and look into the faces of my students, and I think about their backgrounds and what they bring to the classroom, right? A lot of the times, unfortunately, teachers may look at students and see a deficit if they're Spanish speakers or if they're anything other than, right? They're classified as other, and it's a deficit. I see that as an opportunity to really engage them and to bring in their own experiences and their own cultural backgrounds and try to provide the best to my ability a very enriching and culturally sensitive education. And you know, I didn't just wake up one day and decide to be that way, right? There were things in my life that influenced and really shaped the perspective that I have. That really gave me the motivation that I needed, and I really needed it, to get through school, to finish high school as a single mom, to go to college and to become a machista and to learn about my history, my cultura, because that's not taught to us in the school system. And so once I began to learn about that, and I began to learn about, more and more about Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta, and so many countless Chicanas and Chicanos in the struggle who paved the road for us, I was like, how did I go through K-12 and not know any of this? Like, I felt robbed. I almost felt like somebody told me I was adopted or something. And I was like, what? Like, there's this huge chunk of my life, of who I am, that was missing. And so then I was just extremely determined to find out as much as I could and to fill in those gaps. And I did that through being a machista, through, I transferred eventually to UCSB and majored in Chicano studies. I started talking to my mom a lot about our culture, our history, and she started telling me stories about her tios and tias and stories about the revolution and this and that. I'm like, all this information that was right in front of me, and I didn't even think to tap into that, because I think that also society and the way the education system is, it kind of like blocks us from our parents and our grandparents, right? Because they weren't educated, formally educated, right? So what do they know? But learning and tapping into my cultura, my raíces, and understanding the importance of the knowledge and the gems that we have in our elders, I really just tapped into that. And my mom, by the way, she was very involved in the UFW too, and she, I think a lot of us here are probably children or grandchildren of farm workers, so I was one of them. And my mom went on marchas when she was pregnant with me, so I tell my students, and I like to tell people that I was born with my fist in the air, And, she went on marchas all the time. And I remember as a little girl, she would take me to the meetings, organizing. And I'm, in the back. And I have this visual in my head of playing in a corner with my sister and just playing. But, they're organizing. It's like serious business, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to play over here. But I still have that visual picture in my head and how it, even then, even when I didn't really know what was going on, I knew what was going on. Because it shaped who I am today, right? And, working in the summers in the fields with my parents, that shaped also, like, Cesar and Dolores, like being there, really being in the trenches and seeing what it was like and experiencing that kind of work and being treated, unfairly and stuff. So that really shaped me. And, I have to say that I don't think that I would be here today, and I can probably speak for a lot of us, that I wouldn't be here today without the work that Cesar did and that Dolores and so many others, because really it was, it's been a long, long fight. And to sit here and say I did it on my own would be ridiculous, right? Because, for me to be where I am today is really to pay respects to those who came before me. There's no way that I could be here without them. So, as a teacher, going back to me being a teacher, as a matter of fact, for the last couple of weeks, I bring in a lot of the education about Cesar Chavez, and we've been reading so many books, and I teach first graders, by the way. And so these first graders can walk in here today and tell you the difference between a huelga, a boycott, a protest, a marcha. Okay, they can do it. They can hold it down. And, for many years, we would organize a little mini marcha at the school. So the kindergarten, everybody would make their protest signs. And the kindergartners would come and pick up the first graders, and then we'd go and pick up the second graders, and everybody would be marching, "Sí se puede," around the whole school. And then we'd sit and sing De Colores and, on and on. And then right now we're doing a coin drive at our school. And so every year we donate the money to our local UFW chapter. And so, we really just want to ingrain in our students and plant that seed, that semillita of consciousness, right? That, even at a young age, we can make a difference. Even at a very young age, whatever coins you have in your pocket, you can donate it and put it in that bucket with that UFW flag and know that you're going to make a real difference. So we want to be able to empower even the little ones that way. And so, they go to their lunch line. See, they're so excited right now. They're so motivated. So that's what I love about teaching. And for many years, even our school right now, I teach at Montalvo Elementary, by the way, in Ventura. So you're welcome to come by. Right now, you're going to see all the hallways filled with portable murals that the school children made, you know, of Cesar and the UFW flag and all these different images. And we also have a permanent mural on one of our walls that I helped paint with my friend Luis Genaro Garcia from LA. And it has a student reading a book, and in the book it has a picture of the UFW. So I wanted to make sure that if I ever should leave that elementary school, I left that stamp of the UFW on that wall permanently.
Gandhi, everything about Gandhi that he could find that he read. And so he thought marches were so powerful because when you're talking about organizing and leadership development, you're talking about people being empowered. And he always felt that when people marched and they saw each other and you could just feel that energy of people coming together, that was so, so important. And also the whole issue about learning. I mean, I think one of the things that we have to do is make sure we take over all the school boards in California, okay? So that we can have not only ethnic studies to talk about the contributions of people of color, los Mexicanos, you know, people from Asia, the Chinese, the Japanese, the African slaves, how they built this country that's not taught in our school books. And of course about what women have contributed and what labor unions have contributed. So I think that's the goal. So you don't have to wait till you get to college to learn about all of these different contributions that people have made. They actually passed a law in Arizona that if you went on strike, you could go to prison. If you said boycott anything, you could go to prison, okay? And so he did another 25-day fast in Arizona, and that's where Cesar Chavez came from. You want to hear the story real quick? Because we were organizing and we went to some of these professionals, the Chicano professionals, to come and help us, and they said, no, in California you can do all of that, pero en Arizona no se puede. And so my response to them was, sí se puede, okay? And that's how that was going, okay? And so the last fest Cesar did was for 36 days, and that was in Delano, California, and he did that one to bring to the attention of the world about all of the poisons, all of the pesticides that are sprayed on the farm workers, okay? And that's why he did that last fest.
Yeah, there is.
Well, Cesar believed in, he believed that religion was not something that you just did in church, you know? He really believed in that whole Catholic worker concept that it's an action, it's service, it's helping people. In fact, even though he had been an altar boy and we had some priests that supported us, he really felt that it wasn't just about being in church praying, that you had to be out there and you had to actually help people. This is what it meant, actually helping people, not just sitting in. In fact, he didn't like what he called church mice, you know? People that are just always in church, always praying. You have to get out there and you have to do something. And so when we would have these, before every big strike, we would have these masses, right? And he would tell the priest, I want you to absolve everybody. Everybody. Okay, these are farmers, these are poor people. You know, you got whatever sins they committed, just forgive them. And of course, the priest did what Cesar wanted, so they would forgive the sins, and so all of the farm workers were able to take communion. And so we had these huge, giant masses, right, where you had hundreds of people that were able to take communion. He believed in an active type, something like what Christ did, okay, similar like that.